What do you know about marketing in real estate?
So it's value add.
You talk about not knowing how to fit in.
Steve Jobs, right-hand man.
Getting more eyes to bring in new clients.
We saw the suburbs of Vegas and we're like, what is going on?
That's the skill set right there.
Like $300,000. It was Michael Jordan.
It's polarizing.
Why do you choose a real estate agent?
Growing up like super poor.
You're a professional bruncher.
Donald Trump wins this election.
If money is your biggest problem, you don't have problems.
Do it 25,000 times. You'll get really fucking good at it.
Amazing. This is the funniest story ever, but...
I want to do a brief introduction for you first. Mary Gavri, we've had your husband on before.
Yes.
Again, you are the better half of the Gavri group.
I'll take it.
And
Yeah,
that's not
that's
saying much to
fine.
say
Yeah.
that there. So I want to start with a couple of just short questions to kind of
Sure.
just like icebreakers, get them out there. Because you have a very interesting backstory and bio. And I was reading through your bio, I'm kind of like, wow, I didn't know that about you. Wow, I didn't know that about you. That's very interesting. So where were you born?
So I was born in Kiev, Ukraine.
Kiev, Ukraine, which is certainly a wild place in the news these days.
Very much so, yes.
When did you come here?
So we immigrated in 89, which is right. So I was 6 years old. Do the math. I just gave my age
Like,
online.
1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4. You're
And
55?
92. Sometimes I feel it. But so we immigrated right before the USSR dismantled and everybody became their own countries. But back then it was the USSR under communism and everything like that. Like I lived that communism life. I remember standing in line with my dad at the, waiting for bread. Everything was
That's
a challenge.
wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I have, it's at 6, you have some sort of recollection, but I do remember the struggle. I remember getting on the airplane. My parents had no money. We came to Chicago. We got sponsored. We came through a refugee program. And I remember just those first 2 years were brutal. Like my parents are crying, just trying to like feed us, let alone, we're living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park in Chicago with mice. And I mean, really, we had that whole story. And then my dad was driving pizza delivery. My mom was like working at Venture. Do you remember that store at the time?
No.
It was like a JCPenney back in the day.
Really? Okay.
And they saved up their first $10,000 and bought a house. And then that's it. And then
That's so
they
wild. So
flourished,
How cognizant were you to all this that's going on? Because that's a big change to go from Ukraine, part of the USSR, around the time that the Berlin Wall was coming down. But, like, were you conscious about like all the geopolitical things that were
probably
going on?
not. Probably
Okay.
not. The thing I was conscious about, and what I think really like molded me, is that I was foreign. Like I knew when I got into 1st, 2nd grade, I am not like these kids.
Yeah.
They dress different. What is there? This is the funniest story ever, but I'm sitting at lunch and I see a kid pull out a string cheese. And I'm like, Mom, I want this cheese. And they pull it apart. And my mom's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we have no idea what string cheese is. So she goes to the store and she just buys a block of cheese and cuts it in the shape that I tell her to cut it. And then I'm crying because my cheese won't do the string thing.
Yeah.
But imagine somebody who's like never been to a grocery store before navigating the cheese aisle to get the string cheese. So I just remember those formative, like, from 6 to 12, just being this like weird foreign girl who like had to get it together, learn English, but like I knew I wasn't like a lot of these kids. Yeah. And that was like definitely developed my personality.
What was it like dealing with the language barrier for you? Because obviously you don't sound like you speak Russian
you'll kind
or
of,
anything like that, but
maybe as we go you'll pick up that like English might, that girl might have English as a second language, but I don't
think anyone would say that.
Really?
Do you hear that from people?
Yeah.
Really?
I think even like my husband would say like once in a while, like the Russian comes out. I definitely get brain fog easily because a lot of words in Russian, they mean like they'll translate to each other in English, but they don't mean the same. They're like so much more powerful in Russian or vice versa. Or it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like Actually, I have a cute example. My nanny, who's Russian, one time I said, God, I'm just so in love with my little baby or something. I said, he's like my little man, like my love or something. And in Russia, it just doesn't translate to that, to where it almost sounds like I'm really talking about a boyfriend or a husband, you know? So there's a lot of that. But back to, what was the question? If I was...
Well, I do want to dig in a little bit more into this, because I think that there's this concept of, like, you come in, like, you're learning, like, English for the first time. You're going to school in English.
Yeah.
You must have had an accent back then as you were learning it. Like, what was that like for you to navigate that?
I think they say that if you come before, like, 11, that you usually lose the accent that you come from. So if you notice, maybe I don't have one. My brother was 13 and he still has a slight accent.
Okay.
So, but my parents came in their 40s.
Okay.
So they, for sure, I mean, I think people, even like when my husband met me, he's like, so you're Russian? So what is, and by the way, I say that I'm Russian because back then, Kiev was still part of Russia. So it was Russian culture, Russian language. It's really hard for me to say Ukrainian when I don't even speak the language. Sure. I don't really know any of the customs Ukrainian. So I just say Russian because it's easier.
Okay. But I didn't know if Ukrainian was a language. I wasn't going to ask.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
It's a total. And now that the two places hate each other, Ukrainians want nothing to do with the Russian language. So they don't even play Russian movies, Russian music. So it's really weird for me, who only knew at 6 years old how to speak Russian and knew that culture. And now they're like completely dismantled and they don't even obviously they don't get along. I don't know if anybody's seen the news, but
I would love to know what your thoughts are on all of that going on, because like you're coming from Kiev, but you claim kind of the Russian side of it. But what goes through your mind? What's your opinion of all this?
Oh, what's my opinion? Politically, I think it's a little bit harder for us. I think people are too opinionated on this subject without really knowing like the deep history and the rift between Russia and Ukraine. And I think there's some really bad people on both sides. And whatever caused the friction, I'm not a proponent of war whatsoever. So I feel terrible that people are suffering from both places. Obviously, like I have a nostalgia when I look at Kiev, like the capital of Ukraine. It's beautiful, but I don't have a lot of opinion. I really don't. I'm in love with America. That's what I'm in love with, because you can get me started on America and what this country has done for me and my family. Then I literally couldn't shut up. But as far as my roots with Ukraine and Russia, not a lot.
I want to ask you, like, because that's odd to me that you don't have like a stronger opinion on, like, the only knowledge I have about it is from a Netflix documentary I watched because I wanted to know more about the conflict. And I love the Civil War, World War II, the Cold War. They have one documentary that goes and deep dives into like Russian history and all. Very, very informative. But okay, as an American citizen now, do you like the fact that your tax dollars are going to fight one side of the war?
Probably not. No. Okay. No. But again, it's so complicated, and why do we have this alliance with Ukraine? I still don't understand. It really is like a subject that I am probably the least comfortable even like analyzing, because I really grew up, other than those little few years in the Ukraine, as such an American. So just like any one of my friends who grew up in the US, they're like, why are they fighting? Why are we sending so much money out there? What is the history? What is the take from each side
it's
politically?
Funny how so many wars are that way when you explain it to the outsider. It's kind of like, so why are they not getting along? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why don't they just?
But it's probably so deep rooted, and I know that there's a fight over land. I think, the USSR was communist up until 91. I mean, I don't even know if we can grasp our minds around what communism is.
Sure.
Like, you were literally controlled by your government. I remember, so my parents are both masters, engineers, and you live the exact same as anybody else, no matter what your, degree, whatever your education. Also, we came through a refugee program. So we wanted to get out. It was bad.
That's so crazy to me. I mean, first off, the fact that your parents were able to come here, bring their kids with them, you kind of breeze past the fact that they saved up $10,000, which like back in the 90s, that's a big deal.
Yeah, some money,
You know, that's a lot
delivering
of money.
pizza and my dad did Jimmy John's and pizza delivery.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
I always get stuck on how many Americans don't have what it takes to save up $10,000, but why do immigrants always win? They always come in with the mindset, I start at zero, I save, and I build a life off of that.
Because my parents were brilliant coming here. So it's like, yes, they didn't have the language. The only thing that kept my parents from being engineers in their lifetime in America is just the language. Because in your 40s, it's like if you were to move to China tomorrow, like Steve, get perfect in Chinese.
Yeah.
It's probably, I mean, you could if you made it like but they have to support a family. They have to, we're going to school. I didn't have the same upbringing. It's really funny because I always look at my husband's upbringing and my upbringing. And even though culturally we're aligned, but oh my God, I walk into his house and I see all his pictures growing up when you do those school photos.
Yeah.
I remember begging my mom for just a small one. And they're like, well, it's $12, honey. Like, we'd love to buy that for you. Okay, let's get the small one. You can get 10 of those.
Yeah.
And David has the ones that are like, life size.
The 20 by 30s,
yeah. And it's like, wow, your parents, they didn't even flinch. I remember those were like $100.
Yeah.
And there's no way. And I wouldn't have even asked my parents for that because you just don't spend $100 on a school photo.
Yeah.
Like, Dad, get out the camera. We're doing Mary's school photo today.
So much of your background resonates with me because you talk about not knowing how to fit in. Am I American? Am I Russian?
Yeah.
I'm learning a language. Growing up super poor. I can't have all the things my friends have. Growing up biracial in the early 90s in the DC area was kind of a weird spot to be too. We were also super poor, but you don't fit in with black people.
Yes.
You don't fit in with white people that way. Or at least they look at you differently, and you don't really know where you fit in. Then there's at least on the East Coast, the racism that existed back then, where my mom married a black guy and then got excommunicated from the Catholic family because you just don't do that.
I'm always fascinated by that. Like, I am always
craziness.
Biracial people fascinate me to no end because there has to be like, what was the story behind? I know so many biracial people. I grew up in Chicago, and it's like, what was like? How was it like growing up? How did your white grandparents accept your black grandparents? I mean, it's fascinating.
It's super odd.
Yeah,
it was a weird way to start, but also like growing up like super poor too, and not being able to do all the things that we saw the people around us doing. I am curious, as you look at taking that background of not knowing how you fit in, and it bleeds through your education and then gets you to, it's time for college. Like, you've already had to overcome a lot as a grade schooler, and now you're getting ready to go and do, I would call it now, hard things, but you're already used to that. So how did that play a role in what you decided to study? What did you study and where was it?
Okay, so I went to the University of Illinois in Chicago. So I did grow up 40 minutes away from the city, right, in Chicago. And one thing about me is I was a party girl. I loved the party nightlife. I think from the time I was able to get a fake ID, now having foreign parents is a real advantage because, Mom, I'm just going to go sleep over at Jenny's house. And it was, okay, honey, like in Russia, kids are so much more mature at 15, 16. So if you're going to go sleep at Jenny's house, okay. Go sleep at Jenny's house. That's what they do. Is that what Americans do? Yeah. On school nights, I probably went through like 10 fake IDs by the time I was 18.
Goodness.
Yes. It's wild because I tell my husband about my like teenage years and he just can't believe it. But so I had to live in the city, had to go to college in the city. And it was more of like my party life had to be like the main focus. Yeah. And then I went to college, living in the city.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting my master's. Okay. So I obviously
And what did you study when you were in school?
Business and then marketing. So I've always had a business marketing background.
Yeah.
And then I got my master's in business and with a marketing concentration and and then studying marketing is so broad. Yeah. I literally hate the term marketing because it's just marketing is everything we do, everything we touch, every relationship we have, everything we sell, you know what I mean? So it's like, did college really prepare me for marketing? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Especially back then in the, early 2000s, like,
sure.
is it the same marketing now as it was back then? It
It's very
literally
different,
evolves
but-
daily. When it comes to social media, daily algorithms change and marketing protocols change.
That's interesting. What do you look back at from your college education in marketing that you still see yourself using today?
It's actually not the education, it's the people.
Hmm.
It's building these alliances and learning how to navigate the classroom. I was always, so I've never been like the smartest person in the room, but I've always been pretty charming. So I always align myself with the right people, and always like, somehow the teachers always loved me.
Okay.
I don't know. I just always
Naturally
got by.
teacher's pet status?
Not even teacher's pet status, just like I'm always going to answer the question because I'm talkative and
Yeah.
I'm outgoing. But it's not like school came that easy for me. Relative to other people, I think maybe with the language barrier at times,
Okay.
and just starting. I mean, I didn't learn how to speak English till I was 8.
Okay.
So if I came at 6, I didn't really speak English till 8. And there's even to this day where, like, you know what idioms are?
Yes.
Like, I'm on
yes.
fire, or there's still idioms that I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
that I'm like, wait, how does that go? And I'm always asking David, because David's like brilliant in all
That's
English
the first
things.
sign
Yeah.
for people that like maybe like
Yeah.
you are not.
Or like there's one, and I swear he's in the room, so he could probably remind me, but there's one that I always get wrong. And it's like, because I didn't grow up on these terms.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up on the movies that you guys all watched.
Yeah.
Because I got a late start at 8 years old, like all these like holiday movies and stuff. Like, I wasn't around for that. And so there's just like a catch up, you know, that,
Yeah.
and then having immigrant parents who are working so much, they weren't doing homework with me every night,
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
So like school was a little bit challenging, and then actually by the time I got to grad school, I killed it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the life experience. I was already working, but I was always like just really great at the people aspect, the creativity, those types of things, but maybe not like every fundamental subject was just like, so, you know,
Yeah.
easy for me.
What happened after college? As you moved on, what was that first job out of college? What were you doing?
My first job out of college, my real first job out of college, was for the Bank of New York Mellon, which is a really big company on Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
So I started off, it was just very like, you know, back office kind of administration. And I kept, you know, that company was so great because it had all these opportunities. It was a satellite office in Chicago, but it was pretty big. I think it was like 200 people at the time. And I just grew and grew. And I sort of went from a operational role to then like a more client-facing, you know, activity. And then I was traveling a lot, going back and forth from Chicago to New York. And then that's kind of how I landed in finance. Just sort of landed on my lap.
Okay.
And then I just took it, you know, and so at Bank of New York, we had a lot of affinity groups. So I was really heavily involved in the affinity groups.
What's
I
an
was
affinity group?
like women's, let's say, like when you work for a company that big, there's like a lot of philanthropy work. We did a lot of Big
sure,
Brother, Big
okay.
Sister. We did a lot of, so I was part of the women's group. I then, I did our Pride group. So it was basically, it gives employees an outlet, like activities, or, you know, if you want to join these groups, you're supported. There was one, you know, racially, like not biracial, you know, diversity
Yeah.
and inclusion type of group. And I was involved in all of them because I
Yeah.
loved people. Like I knew that I loved people so much, and like this is how I'm going to get seen in the company, because you
Sure.
can very easily hide in your cubicle and be very like in the background.
Yeah. So this is all separate from like your day job.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is, and the day job is mostly like, what are you doing for that in that first
So
job?
day job is like mostly operational, but
Okay.
like client operational. So you're doing research on clients. You're preparing like RFPs, which is requests for proposals.
Yeah.
Kind of getting the background on these clients. How do we, you know, sell to them? How do we position ourselves? Make an introduction, that type of thing.
It's very
But-
applicable for what you do
yeah,
now.
absolutely.
I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I loved that company. It was great, but it was like a great first 7 years.
Sure.
They paid for my MBA, which, oh my God, like anybody who has that opportunity has
Phenomenal.
to take advantage of that.
The Army paid for mine. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
with
It's
you on
just
that.
like I was like, And then my MBA was the coolest thing ever because I really felt like an adult. I was like, oh, we're talking about business? I could talk about business. I've seen this.
I do this all day long and now I'm here.
And then I made all these great connections. I went to London for a month and studied there. I mean, I was like this is the first time I felt like I was a true adult. And I was like 28 years old.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, okay, this party girl can like... she can do this. I can probably like simmer down a little bit. So that was really cool to get my MBA.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you worked in that job for BNY for how long?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is that when you ended up meeting David, your now husband, that is now part of the Gavri group with you?
So, and I think this is like the biggest part of my story. I did not meet David till I was 32 years old.
Okay.
So like as a lot of women establish those things early on. David, he's my favorite chapter, the best chapter, but there was so much before him that was probably appealing to him because I had a really great career. At that time I was working for a private public equity firm and then I was doing their marketing. It was a smaller group. I loved that company. It was like the best experience I've ever had. I was sitting in rooms with people that I was like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, I'll never forget, but the analysts that were picking our portfolio stocks were like, one of them was like Steve Jobs' right-hand man he was our technology expert. And I was like, I can't even believe I'm working in like the fanciest office. Yeah. I remember the photo on the wall and our CEO is like the greatest guy, the most humble, amazing guy. But he's like, yeah, that photo I think it was like 300. I'm like $300,000. He's like, I got it. It was a steal. Yeah. Do you know who that artist is? And I was like, no. But I think that's where I really like, so in my like late 20s, early 30s, I was in like rooms with really fascinating people. And I realized.
Were you conscious about the fact, thinking through where you came from and that the fact that now you're sitting in these rooms with these people who get $300,000 paintings and you're dealing with these high level clients and thinking, I'm from a poor immigrant family that came here with nothing.
So I should have, but I didn't. Cause I always maybe I was like, I don't know. I always felt like I remember I like in high school I got like most likely to host a talk show. I always thought I used to think I was like Ricky Lake or Oprah. I always thought I was like yeah, I'm just as great as everybody else. I never had sure, growing up, self-esteem issues, but in that regard, I never felt like lesser than people. Yeah. And that's what always kind of like, I think was at my advantage. Like I felt good about myself. And the poverty or like growing up poor, and my parents ended up doing great and literally paid for my college, paid for every car I had. Like they ended up having the American dream down to a science just by being great savers and all that. My brother's extremely successful. So I had all that and it maybe gave me like this arrogance. I don't know, but I think you need that when you're in your 20s and you really haven't accomplished anything. The only thing you really need to like walk into a room with is like a pride for yourself and that I'm one of you guys, you know, like, oh, you worked with Steve Jobs. Well, my dad worked at Jimmy John's and he loved it. And, you know, I never had that complex. I also just think people are fascinating. I think people are no matter how wealthy you are or how poor you are, maybe not that over, you know, stimulated by like money and how much money you have. Yeah. I'm more into the person and the fascinating story behind the person than how wealthy you are. So maybe that's why I was just okay being in these rooms.
A lot of people get fazed by that, whether it's celebrity or whether you know that, oh no, that's Jamie Dimon. Yeah. You know, he's worth like X number of $1 billion and he's got all this status. But you didn't feel that way when you were in these rooms with these people.
I don't think I did. Yeah. I just think I was like, this is crazy. I get to learn from these people. Yeah. I get to go to fancy dinners and sit and have happy hours with these amazingly talented, super wealthy, all these people. Yeah, it became sort of the norm. And then I was just always kind of in circles where I was always around that. Yeah. Living in Chicago. I'll never forget, I was 18 years old and fake ID. Okay. At a bar. Yeah. And the bouncer comes up to me and a few of my girlfriends and he goes, do you ladies want to go upstairs? There's bottle service upstairs. Like, of course, we want to go upstairs for bottle service.
Yeah.
When do we pay for a drink when you're 21? And it was Michael Jordan, like sitting there
Michael
and we're
Jordan.
having, and we're
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, we did not talk. We should have become best friends then. I really know a lot about
unbelievable
basketball. But it's just like living in a big city. I think you're exposed to that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, I'm sitting. I got a drink from Michael Jordan's table. There was like a huge entourage, 1,000 people, but and it's just like, yep, this is happening. And living in Chicago, you do get exposed to a lot of that, like celebrities, very high net worth individuals. It's kind of just like around, and you're young and you're always around, your young friends, and you're always getting invited to stuff and doing some really cool stuff. So I think from that perspective, it's the big city. Like if you're in New York or Chicago, that stuff is more, it's just more like, it's happening all the time.
Well, I just came back from both New York and Chicago, and I was struck by both. I spent a lot of time in New York when I was a kid, never been to Chicago before. Yeah. So when I saw a beach like right next to the city, I was kind of like, well, what is this about?
It's the most underrated city. Yeah.
But the architecture and those buildings.
It's incredible.
Did the tour on the river, and I was like, oh my God. Quickly, compare and contrast for me the life you're living when you meet your husband that you're now partnered with in this real estate venture. Was there any indication at the time that this is what your life would look like when the two of you met?
No, except, first of all, it's the weirdest thing ever, because before David, I definitely dated like doctors and lawyers, and I lived in the city, and I was, tech guys. I had a dating life. Like I was 32 years old, and I was doing well in my career. I was hanging around those types of people. So I met David, and he was, and we know David's background. He was a comedian. Yeah. And I'll never forget this. I, first of all, went out with him because I was absolutely shallow, and I just thought he was like the handsomest guy on the planet. And he was actually, and I tell this story, but he came right after like a really bad breakup. I was devastated. And he was younger than me and a comedian. But then when I started spending time with him, I was like, he's the greatest human I've ever met in my entire life. And he's brilliant. Yeah. And he was summa cum laude in his, at a really great university. This guy, he just needs me. We'll take it to the top. Yeah. Like that's all he needs is like a great partner. And his entertainment world was so fascinating to me, and it made me feel so alive. And I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And never looked back, never questioned it. Some of my friends that were like that are like probably still single to this day, because big cities, they're like, you're dating a comedian? Yeah. And I was like, yes. And he's the greatest. And I knew he was ambitious. I knew he was brilliant, and I knew people loved him. And so all those elements and he's 29, we'll figure it out. Let's figure it out together.
And look at where you're at now. I mean, I think so much of what the two of you are building right now and have already accomplished so far in the space is nothing short of fascinating, with like multiple $1 million listings gone in what has been the space of like 6 months. You guys have done that and then leveraging it from there. So help me understand how you then, from Chicago, you meet David, you guys get married, these very different lives that you're living, and then you navigate yourself here to Las Vegas, you become the Gavri group. Like, bring me up to speed on that story.
So we're living in Chicago. This is my person. 32 years. Imagine, like, that's different when you're marrying at 32 versus meeting somebody in college or 22 years old. Like, I really knew this is my person. So I'll blindly go wherever, I was like, I don't want to be in the cold. Do you? No. Okay. Do we like humidity? No, we don't like humidity. So what about the West Coast? What about Arizona? He went to college in Arizona. And we came to Vegas a lot. So we used to come here for the weekend all the time. That was like our thing when we were dating, and then when we got engaged. And he had some friends in college here, and we went to like a barbecue in the middle of November. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do this. And then we saw the suburbs of Vegas, and we're like, what is going on? They're clean, they're beautiful, you feel like you're on vacation. We love the big city vibe, so we can go to dinner and have a great dinner on the Strip. Or any of the restaurants here, even in the suburbs, are better than some of the restaurants in Chicago. It's true. So we just, let's do it. Let's go to Vegas. And David was sort of establishing himself in his career. He wasn't sure. He got some really good gigs here in Vegas for comedy, and then we get pregnant.
Oh, that's when the story changes there.
Yes, the story changes drastically.
Because you were still working at this time,
I'm working,
doing the
still
finance
doing
job?
finance marketing.
Okay.
I found a boutique here in Vegas, hated every moment of it. It was not,
okay.
It was like a husband and wife little boutique shop, private equity firm, nothing what I imagined.
Are you doing like marketing for individual stocks that you're...
No, it was more of like, he would buy gigantic buildings and then sell them off into private equity, like through a private equity. But the dynamic there was weird. Everything about it was like, get me out of this place.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally, this is not who I am. Like, I've worked for some really awesome people, some really good, empathetic, sweet people. And this one just didn't feel like me at all.
Were you doing more so like helping him to offload those proproperties through private equity? And so it was all like very business marketing
Anyone
focused?
who needs a 1031 exchange, they go through him, and it could constitute as a 1031 exchange for some of their investment, money that they have to invest.
And just explain for people the 1031 exchange. I kind of know what it is, but like break that down.
So people who invest a lot in properties, if you are an investor and you own a lot of homes, you're going to get penalized on the equity that you've earned. So you're going to have to pay a certain percentage back. You're going to pay that money back. So if you 1031 within a certain time frame, you can... that basically, let's say you bought a house for 500, you sold it for $1 million, that 500,000 is going to get taxed heavily.
Yeah.
You could put it back in your account, or you can just reinvest it into something else. You can reinvest it into another property, and it can be commercial. So that's what this private equity was doing, was reinvesting back into these commercial buildings.
They were 1031ing from other commercial properties into new commercial properties?
No, it was mostly residential. So let's say you made $1 million, you have an apartment building, or you made $1 million and you don't want to pay money on that apartment building, you can then redirect it into this 1031.
Interesting.
Which is a business. And honestly, here's the funny part. I'm not a finance girl. I'm a creative relationship girl.
Yeah.
So was I passionate about this? Absolutely not. Can I get the job done and can I relay the story? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just have to learn about it, just like I had to learn in public equity, just like I had to learn with at Bank of New York when I was working on the custodian side in asset-backed securities.
But see, that's the skill set right there, is being able to apply it anywhere.
But I was never, and a lot of the companies and people I worked for, they wanted to pigeonhole me into like this finance girl. But I'm not a finance girl. I'm very good at finance. I get it. I understand real estate. I understand the stock market, but I'm not a finance guru. I don't wake up at 4 a.m. to watch the stock market.
Sure.
It doesn't drive me.
Yeah.
So I was always doing the relationship marketing pieces for financial institutions. But so I'm working at this company and I'm like, oh, this is not my cup of tea.
And the pregnancy saved you from that job?
Well, I don't even remember the timeline, but basically, as we're looking for a house, we're trying to buy a house.
Yeah.
The real estate agent, I just fell in love with her. She was like this spunky French girl, and I just loved everything about her. She was like this dynamite human. And she goes, my boss is looking for a marketing person for our group. And he's like the top guy here in Vegas. And she goes, he sold Steve Wynn his home. And I was like, oh, that is so cool.
Big names, yeah.
Yeah. And I met with him. I love him. He and I clicked, like, we probably were supposed to meet for 15 minutes and we ended up talking for an hour and a half. And he has this fascinating background. He was a Cirque du Soleil dancer. He is like, anything he touches, he's incredible at. And he hired me. And that was who I got to spend every day with for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So this is like, give me the height here. This is like a top real estate agent.
Top real estate agent in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
With a group. Yeah. With a lot of really talented people on his group.
Just help me understand this whole group dynamic. Because like when you say that, I'm imagining he's got a lot of realtors that work with him, but he's kind of the head agent.
7 or 8, yes. Okay. And because he is like brilliant, he can, there's so many things that happen. People think real estate is like you open a house and, some transactions are easy. Yours was actually a pretty straightforward, easy one. Yeah. There's so many complicated ones. There's 1031s. There's investment properties. There's different personalities that you have to deal with. And working for him, I've never felt so alive doing a job. And I loved every moment of it. And
what does that day-to-day look like in real estate marketing for a top agent in Las Vegas?
The cool thing that I learned from him is he was like very heavy on marketing. Whatever needed to be like whatever I thought, and I could present anything to him. I'm like, let's run these types of ads. Let's do this on social media. Let's do interviews here. Let's do these types of tours. He not only was he obviously giving ideas too, but he was ready to do anything and everything. Get us out there.
Why was he so open to that? Like, what had happened for him that I feel like most business owners are, marketing comes in, it's like, okay, all you do is cost me money and it might be a bad idea. What's wrong? Like, what made him different?
I think he had it correctly. Like, you have to have a fishing rod everywhere. And, you know, people are looking at you from the outside and they have so many options. Why do you choose a real estate agent? It is like the easiest equation for me. They like you as a human. Not because you stepped out of a Lamborghini in your, you know, red bottom stilettos. I find that tactic really tacky.
Yeah.
I think it's like the human connection. Like, who are you as a person? And like, who's going to like that person?
Yeah.
And the transaction's going to happen regardless. Obviously, there's people who are better negotiators. There's people who are more diligent, who are better at the paperwork. But who's going to get you from A to B and you're actually going to enjoy their company?
Yeah.
And
so was most of your job like getting him more eyes, or for the group getting more eyes to bring in new clients who wanted to buy?
Well, he taught me. I mean, I didn't know anything about real estate marketing.
Okay.
So he just showed me, like, we're selling ourselves, we're selling our properties, we're selling a lifestyle of moving to Vegas, and we're selling everything that encompasses us. Every single agent has a great story. Share their properties. And just get out there. And we were heavy on that. And
was it mostly through like social media that you were doing a lot of the marketing?
Building websites, marketing, writing blogs was really, at that time, was, you know, something that people weren't doing as much. Social media, absolutely. Just heavy on social media. You know, we had photo shoots. I just remember having so many photo shoots and anything.
These are photo shoots for the realtors?
The groups,
yeah,
the properties. There was video. Every property had a really beautiful video. And it was like this, and it was never like, well, how much is that going to cost and how much is that going to get us back? It was, get us out there. Just get us out there.
That's so wild to me, because I think we talk about how many realtors are struggling.
Yeah.
In a market that's not like terrible, but it's certainly not what it was in 2022. Yeah. It certainly isn't in the ballpark where realtors would tell you it's pretty easy right now if you have a listing.
Yeah.
Back in 2021, 2022. I'm so curious about what puts him into this category of this being a top realtor in Las Vegas, because you're seeing this blueprint of what to do. And is he being data driven in his approach of everybody's doing this, we move over here? What did you notice about his direction on that?
He was, he was really charismatic. He was a person that if you met him, you really like him. I mean, I still to this day like credit him for teaching me a lot. And I just kind of studied him because he was really charismatic. And his approach was always like the customer literally gets whatever they want, within reason, obviously. But like, they become friends, you know, like he had the best holiday parties, like things like that I just like, I looked at it and I didn't even know how I was going to apply it in my future.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. And I think we kind of dismantled because at that time it was really uncertain, and I just had a baby.
Yeah.
And I was not the same Mary anymore. So we parted ways, and it was amicable. It was fine. And then my child was born. And I mean, any mom knows this. You're not even the same human afterwards. Dads have it different. Like, you can literally 3 months later be the exact same guy, except you just love something a lot.
Yes.
Like, you have this little thing that you are so in love with and you can't wait to come home to it. Moms, everything about you changes.
Let me dig on that for a little bit, because what I tend to notice, and this is purely anecdotal, but every woman who gets pregnant, who's working a professional, high-powered job like you were, to me always says, no, I'm not going to quit my job.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I love what I do.
Yes.
And then I noticed right around that 6-week mark after the baby's born, like, I'm never leaving this thing. Did you recognize that? Is that a true statement?
So you're like, first of all, I was never the woman who dreamed of being a mom. I met David. I fell in love with David, and then I wanted to have children with David. I don't know that I was the one that was like gooing and eyeing at babies, at the grocery store. When my daughter was born, though, I just like was like, this is it. This is the greatest thing. I've never loved anything like this. And then there's obviously like postpartum, and you're dealing with all that, and then I think I went into a really bad funk because I'm not the same Mary. Like I used to be. There was this Mary that I know that everybody knows me as, and I wasn't that Mary anymore.
Yeah.
And that really messed with my just everything. Like internally, I'm like, wow, I can't be a stay-at-home mom because it's not even who I am.
Yeah.
Like I want to be a mom. I don't want to be consumed only with my child. I still want to have a career. I still love people. People is what like gets me up every day.
Yeah.
And I just had to reinvent.
Did you feel like almost like isolated because you had the baby, you didn't want to leave?
For sure.
And then like
you don't look like yourself again. You don't enter a room the same.
Yeah.
People know that. I mean, you're tired. Your brain is actually like at about a 60% capacity.
Yeah.
You're like, you can't wake up twice a night and feed bottles and do things and then like be the same person, especially, and I tell David this all the time, women need more sleep than men. And I'm like, there's so many studies on that. Women with the amount of hormones and everything going on in their bodies, they like to be on their A game, they really do need that like perfect sleep.
Yeah.
Most women. The ones that aren't like that, I don't know. That's
they're the ones that predominantly have to navigate those middle of the night wake ups for the most part, because if you're breastfeeding, like I don't have boobs, I can't do it. Like that has to be you.
Yeah, and you at first you're okay, like the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're okay with that because it's like this is what I asked for, and then it's really like that realization after 6, 7, 8 months, you're like, I am not the same person. Who am I anymore?
Yeah.
Why did I even get an MBA? What is like? What is my relationship like with my marriage? Because I know I'm not the same Mary he fell in love with.
Yeah.
Not even physically, but just like mentally, I'm not as strong. I'm not as confident. Like it takes a huge toll.
That's such an interesting place to stop there, because I do think in every relationship, there's the person that you date.
Yeah.
And there's the person that you're actually married to. We date in very optimal conditions. Nobody's really tired. Nobody's really stressed out all that much.
Yeah.
And we all put on a show too, to put on like, I want to woo you,
Yeah.
I'm trying to win you over.
Yeah.
Okay. You get married, you have some kids, years have gone by. And now like people say, well, I don't really know who you are. It's like, well, you've never seen me tired before.
Yeah.
You've never seen me stressed before. You've never seen me have an extra mouth to feed before, and know that like you saw that journey play out and recognize like, it's not that I'm a different person, but you're seeing a different side of me.
And
than
you know
before.
what? And I'm almost a different person. And it's like, thank God you love me so much. Because I there's like one thing I don't even have to question it. I have never questioned it a day in my life, whether or not my husband's like taking this journey with me. And I mean, I'm sure he knows me a certain way and he's seen me change so much, but he's been there, right? Like loves me unconditionally, like has been my biggest support through everything. So that I thank God for every day. Like that's my saving grace in life, is because having that, and I don't even know if I met him earlier in my life, if I would have had the same dynamic. I don't know, but the stars aligned and I just got a really great partner in life.
Well, you guys are a great match in so many ways, but like, I'm curious how, like, did you pull him into real estate then? Because you're working this job, you're seeing the blueprint, and now you guys have this group, but there's a couple year gap in between. Like, what happens there?
So David's working in commercial property management, And we're also rehabbing a home, which there's a fun story with that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was a big, massive home, and we did this huge rehab, and we're going to flip it, and we're going to sell it. And then we're getting into like Airbnbs. So real estate is now not only a part of my job, but it's now becoming like a part of our identity. And we have family that wants to heavily invest in Vegas. So nothing is happening right now. We're not getting our license. I now am consulting and working for different real estate agents throughout the city, a brokerage. I was helping with a mortgage company, and I'm seeing this world, and I'm getting so heavily into this world, and agents are now my best friends. All my friends are now agents.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. And you start seeing some of these, like how they're doing and their commissions and what they're going through. And I'll never.
What's one that sticks out in your mind where you realize, I got to get into this game?
I don't even know if this one even, I'm not even going to say which real estate agent, but the transaction was a $4 million house, and you can do the math.
What's
on
a commission like? Just because I'm dumb, like help me with the commission on a $4 million house. What are we talking about?
3% on $40 million, $120,000.
$120,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was that a difficult transaction to get done, or did you see it and kind of like, oh, that looks?
No, the client was absolutely the loveliest human on the planet, and the person got it done because they were a lovely person, and they worked lovely together, and it was just an amazing thing to witness.
See, everyone has that moment where their eyes are opened up, and they realize whatever I think I knew about money in the past actually isn't true, because if they just made 2 times the national average income for a household in one transaction, and I'm busting my ass somewhere else for less than that, well, wait a minute. What does it take for me to do that job? Is that what your mindset was?
So no, my mindset is not that, because I see so many agents fail. And I would say if you take the average 10 agents, only one of them is going to be successful. So it's not about that one transaction, because that one transaction can't sustain you for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So if you got lucky and got that one, it's literally, you made a transaction, great, move on to the next. What's my next? Like, where's my funnel at? Who am I farming? Where am I going next with that? Because and David will tell you, like, I don't even get excited. I'm excited for people and their transitions in life, because it's like the biggest thing. And I get very close to clients, because if they're really nice humans, I'm drawn, and I just want their whole life story. Like, I still text with your wife all the time, and it's because we were in a transaction together, but I just really liked your wife. And had you guys never bought a house with us or sold a house or whatever, I would love her if I met her at the grocery store, and I would still keep in touch with her. You too. I just got, like, me and your wife text a lot.
That's
and we
right.
had a lot of similarities.
It gets you here for this. Okay, so why do you say that about the say that again? It was like 1 in 10 realtors will be successful.
1 in 10 is going to be successful.
Okay, why is that?
So it is. So I think the biggest marketing tool in real estate is your sphere of influence. So unless, I think, here's the things that need to come together. You need to be a really authentic, likable person. You have to be somebody who can have a lot of interactions with people. So probably someone more on the extroverted side. You have to be someone who is very engaging and memorable. You have to be very, very detail oriented. And you have to be unattached to the money aspect. That's how you become successful in real estate.
And it's just that 10% of people that fit all 5, in your opinion, to make that happen. That, because again, I'm going back to a mindset of when friends I had were pouring into real estate because they were seeing easy money and they were seeing these huge commission checks. And it's like, if I just know people who want to sell homes right now, people are like getting hundreds of offers in, like, I'll go make it happen. Well, so many jumped in, and you watched many fall flat on their face because they didn't have
those
what it
5
takes.
skill sets.
Yeah. Which one of those skill sets is the most important?
So if sphere of influence is the number one way to get transactions, you have to be a person that people really like. And
break down sphere of influence for me, because I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what do you mean by that?
So it's like the girl who wants to find her husband, but like sits at home in her apartment and thinks that the horse is going to pull up and knock on her door and say, "I'm here to marry you." So I, even with dating, this is a fun fact, I made dating a job. Like when I was, and I think David knows this, and I'm sorry, honey, if you don't, but I think that week I had like 3 dates set up with guys, because I have to get myself out there.
Yeah.
And I have to like...
Did you cancel the other 2 once you had the date with him?
Oh,
was
yeah.
it automatic?
I
like,
think...
we're done.
Yeah, he was... I mean, once we started dating, I was like... I couldn't think or breathe and think about anybody else. So it worked out really great. But
that sphere of influence, as it it applies to dating, it applies to real estate. You just mean kind of like putting yourself in situations where you can win.
Being social. So people who are naturally social are going to, like... I can't help it, but when I am at a school where my children are, I like love the moms. I love meeting them. I love their stories. Where are they from? If their child and my child get along, like I want to have play dates.
Yeah.
I really can't walk into most places. So I think my love for people is like probably extreme. I don't think many people have the capacity that I have for relationships in my life, because I am a very, very extreme extrovert. I love even to the point where I think it was like a challenge David and I had in the beginning, because he's really outgoing too, and he loves new people, exciting places, but almost not as much as I do.
Yeah.
Like I don't have, like, if I'm outside and my neighbors want to chit chat, I'm ready.
Yes.
Whereas he's like, can I get into my garage so I can avoid the neighbor next door?
I'm a lot like him, because I call myself an extrovert, but I'll close the garage door really quickly if somebody's coming up. But it makes a good match. But sometimes personalities can be so big that you make the other person look like an introvert when they're not actually an introvert.
That's what's fascinating about my dynamic with David is, yes, I'm a more outgoing, or I'm more extroverted, but he's just as outgoing. So people gravitate, because I could not be married to somebody that was not dynamic.
Yeah.
Because that's like the number one thing. And that's what I noticed early on is like I bring him around my friends and he's dynamic and people fall, and he's so genuine and he's so caring. And you cannot fake that stuff. You just cannot. Like,
is that what makes you guys the perfect match for this, because of what you do on the marketing side, and you saw in him those tendencies, the 5 that you rolled off, like, hey, like we can do this together?
It clicked for me when obviously I'm observing, and then I'm like, wow, you and I, like, people really want to like hang out with us. They want to be our friends. And then obviously like the pieces, and then I had to like reinvent myself, because now I'm a mom of 2.
Yeah.
And oh my God, like this 9-to-5 corporate job is never going to happen again.
Sure.
Not for a long time for me. I can get into it. I have a great resume.
Yeah.
But I had to reinvent myself, and I like love working with my husband. We have this dynamic relationship. We get on each other's nerves like any other married couple, but after 10 minutes,
really?
Yeah.
We never do that. Me
never.
And my wife, we don't have that problem.
Never.
Okay.
But no, it's really hard to work with your significant other, but we're actually really good at it. Like we love it. And he has strengths that I don't have, and I have strengths that he doesn't have.
Yeah.
But the one thing we do have, and I knew that this was the formula for success, is we're likable. Like,
yes.
And we genuinely want to get to know people, and we form connections. I've had friends. There's very few friends that I've lost throughout the years. I've had friends that are 30 years, 32, 35. I have the capacity that, like, my best friend, who's actually, I was talking to her today. She goes, the capacity you have to have like conversations on your phone, on social media, to post is like, it's exhausting to watch. And I go, it's what drives me. Like, I want to know what my best friend Stephanie is doing in Indiana right now. And I want to know what her plans are for Thanksgiving, because I'm really curious. I love her and I want to know what her plans are. And like, not everybody has that, because it's exhausting to a lot of people. So
that's it. And that kind of explains when you got those dynamics and you saw the strengths that he had, the strengths that you had. I look at the two of you being so successful coming into an industry where other people are falling flat on their face. And I love what you guys have done in the luxury side of the real estate. And I've learned lessons from watching, okay, we got one, let's leverage that into the next one, leverage that into the next one, always building upon that experience. Was that your masterpiece and brainchild of, hey, we just sold this home for 1.4 million. We're $1 million realtors now. Now we go and do this. Like, what's the game plan there? Did that come from your mind?
Probably a little bit.
You can own it because he's not going to say anything over there. So.
So I think that's the name of the game in real estate is like, you have momentum, right? So I'm also big on manifestation. Like I believe I'm a $10 million realtor.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even a realtor. I'm the marketing director.
Yeah.
But I believe that we are like capable of selling a $10 million home tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I also love selling $500,000 homes. I love being with people through the journey. And I'm not attached to the compensation because that's just putting bad karma out there. Like I want people to feel good. I want people to feel like we did fair by them. We go above and beyond. Like I have my best trait is like I love decorating. I will come to somebody's home and declutter it for them with them. I'll listen to their stories. I love, like, we just had a client who literally left their home after 30 years. They have not changed one thing in the home, and it was immaculate. It was beautiful, and we went down all like memory lane, and it was like probably the best experience I've ever had. Yeah. Working with this lady and just hearing about her life, hearing about her struggles and her marriage and living in Vegas. She's from California. And like, I'm like, wow, like, thank you for including me part of your journey.
You can't fake caring. You either care or you don't. And you happen to care. I think a lot of other realtors look at, it's, hey, this is a piece of cake. This is a commission I get the chance to go after.
And remember, we've bought and sold homes. So I've been around real estate agents where I'm like, God, you just want this to end tomorrow so you can take your cash away. Yeah. I'll never forget. I didn't know what I wanted, right, for our first home. And I remember the agent was like, yep, this is great. Isn't this great? Let's just, we should put in an offer tomorrow because, you know, it's going to go, it's in Summerlin. It's going to go fast. And I was like, you don't even care.
Yeah. They always do that. It's so annoying to me.
And it's like, you can care. And I will literally, and I don't go to a lot of home tours with people. I'm more on the like marketing side for sellers. But if David asks me to go and we're looking for homes, I'm like, what are you thinking? Pulling out of them. And I'm like, this one's not going to work for you, is it?
That's one of the things I noticed as a client of your and David's. It's the authenticity and the caring, which is very different from a lot of transactions that Elise and I have gone through in the past, which was that it definitely makes it very special. Break down for me on a daily basis, what does your day-to-day look like versus David's day-to-day, and what you guys are both doing for the Gavri group?
So the day-to-days are not, well, first of all, the thing that I just thank God every day for is that I get to like take my kids to school. I get to pick them up. I get to, you know, go pick out their outfits at the store and do that stuff and be so, and yesterday my kids had a Thanksgiving lunch at the school and I get to be there for all that. David likes to make fun of me. He's like, you're a professional bruncher. I go to a lot of brunches. I get together with people, and not because I'm looking for business. I'm not, it's not, I just love to put myself out there. I'm involved in organizations and, you know.
Brunch is the continuation of the party girl. It's just brunch.
It's an elevated brunch of Yeah,
I'm just doing mimosas at 2:00 on a Wednesday. Yeah, you know, it's brunch. It's all good.
But it's not even because I'm having brunch with people that are potential clients. I have brunch with people that are visiting me from Chicago. I love learning. I love expanding. I love the relationships. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Yeah. My friend can visit me from Chicago and I meet him for lunch because I haven't seen him in forever. And it might inspire them one day. Like you just never know, but that's not why I do it. I did it before we were in real estate. Yeah. So my typical day though is, I try to structure it a little bit so that I'm really like focused, but in the morning I usually do all my marketing. So we do newsletters. I really try to keep us focused on social media, running ads. If we have listings, that's a lot of work. You know, there's a lot of marketing behind the scenes for getting the listings up. But really just staying on top of our footprint, reminding people what we do, and just like any other influencer, just putting ourselves out there.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, and David is like a perfectionist. So his videos are like he's like, they've been shot by a potential or a professional videographer, whereas I'm more just like free flowing and like, hi, this is my day, these are my kids.
Yeah.
They don't have to match socks sometimes. Like, just look at my children.
How much of his day is content? How much do you mandate that his day is content?
You know what? Our
mind?
days do not look the same ever. They're just, it really depends on what clients we're dealing with, how many showings. He's running around the whole city doing showings all the time.
Yeah.
Inspection reports. It's a busy lifestyle. And the difference now is we're never off on a Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
But we might be off on a Monday, and we'll take advantage of that. And we always like find time for each other, because that's really important too. And like, we always try to like do a date lunch on a Monday, because we have the capacity for that now.
Sure.
But that means a Saturday we could be running around submitting offers, and it's like you kind of sign up for that life. And I never like knew that phrase where if you're doing what you love, it doesn't feel like you're working.
Yeah.
And it's like so cliche, but I do what I love and it doesn't feel like I'm working.
Well, I hear that from so many people that work for themselves, that are paid for their own performance, entrepreneurial, and it's they're not doing things classically. Like, I sell soap for a living. At least that's what I used to do. And that's not sexy, but I loved it, every aspect of it.
Yep.
And you hear that from so many people that it doesn't feel like work. Like, I want to do as much as I can. So do you feel like, as the marketing arm of the group, that in some ways, with David being the face of it, with the real estate license and all of that, that you kind of have to manage him in order to kind of play out this playbook that you know so well? You've seen work so well. So what's that dynamic like?
That dynamic is interesting because David like respects me to my core. So I never have to worry about that. But sure, we have different visions. And sure, you know, I still win most of the time. But listen, if he's really adamant about something and there's a passion, and he's got this gut instinct that I like admire so much, and he's like one of the best protectors, and like, so if he feels like overprotective about something, about us, our family, like a situation we're in, he's got my 150%, like, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I have different guts. I have different intuition on people and what direction people are going, and we're both really not pushy. I think I'm always like, stay you, stay authentic, and it'll just come to us. And it's literally been that. And it's like, I can't believe it, because I know you hear it all the time, and motivational speakers are like, bring into fruition what kind of life. But like, I've always told David from the moment we met, we live in abundance. We do great stuff. We're going to do great stuff. We're going to have amazing children that are respectful, kind, everything, and we're going to center ourselves around with really, really good people.
Yeah.
Has it always been that way? Do we have like bumps in the road? Absolutely. We've gotten ourselves in situations that we're like, oh my God, this was not how we wanted, this is not something we saw.
You call it manifestation a little bit, of like talking about we're living in abundance. I don't know, in my end, I look at it more as just being, hey, successful people are very aspirational. Like, they're working towards something big, but they see themselves already in that role. Are those two kind of?
I'm sure they go hand in hand, or maybe they're a little bit different. I just like live and breathe like the type of life that I want for myself.
Yeah.
So I live and breathe it like every day, through every action that I'm, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, where I grew up was very middle class, right? So like, I could have gotten stuck in that middle class mindset. Mm-hmm. First of all, like, here's a fun tip, and I don't know, like, and I never talk about things being too much money, or like, we can't afford this. Like, those words do not come out of my mouth, because first of all, nobody wants to hear about what you can and can't afford. I always get like, you need to keep that between you and your family, and you need to live in the parameters that you guys are comfortable with. Anybody. But it shouldn't be anybody else's business.
Yeah.
Just make things happen behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
if you can't, like, David and I will splurge on certain things, and some things we're like, you know what, maybe it's not our turn to go on a $20,000 trip to Japan,
Yeah.
but we're gonna go to extravagant dinners, and like, do we need to go spend $400 on a dinner? No, but does it make you feel good?
Yeah.
Does it make you feel like you're like doing better than you thought you would be at this point in the game? Then live it up.
Yeah.
You know, but I always feel like money, my mom always said this. I swear to God, growing up, she goes, if money is your biggest problem, you don't have problems. And though maybe it sounds naive, because money is a huge problem to people. For somebody who can't afford to pay their rent, that doesn't sound correct, right?
Yeah.
But I just live in like this mentality of like, it's okay. We're going to overcome it. If it's money, we're going to overcome it.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah. See, I like that because I think that the people I know, there's one guy that comes to mind. He used to ask me this question. We were in the military, on a fixed income, basically. Yeah. He goes, why do we make money? And like, I don't know. He goes, so we can spend it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because then we want to make more money, and we just keep on making more money and more money. But that entrepreneurial drive to know, I know how to make money. I understand my personal KPIs so that if I need to make more money, I need to do more of these activities, and that's what drives it. And that's when you position yourself somewhere that you're paid for performance, and you get good at what you do, then like you can drive that forward. I want to bring up this topic because I'm really curious your perspective as a marketer in real estate. We live in this world now that we're so polarized, and cancel culture is a part of our life, and people are worried about that.
Yeah.
Anyone who has a business, who's an entrepreneur, who works for themselves is certainly subject to being canceled. So how do you navigate instances like we just had an election? By the time this airs, it'll be a few months ago. And Donald Trump wins this election. However you feel about that election, it's polarizing. I grew up in a household where you didn't talk about politics.
Yeah.
You didn't discuss religion with people because like those things were taboo. I'm curious your perspective about having political views and what that means in the realm of marketing and trying to brand yourself to attract people to come to you. Do you talk about politics? Are you allowed to talk about religion? Like, break that down for me.
Yeah, so I struggle with this. It's definitely a struggle for me. You know, I like to retain Switzerland on this topic because here's why. First of all, I didn't grow up with politics either. Like, to be honest with you, I don't know that up until like 10, 12 years ago, I really even knew the difference between a Democrat and a Republican.
Yeah.
I just have fundamental beliefs. And they're very similar. Like, my friends, I have best friends who we are not on the same political, we're not aligned, but we have the exact same fundamentals. We want our children to have the exact same things. We want to live in a country that has the exact same type of vision. The only difference is who we surround ourselves with, where we're getting our information from, and what we perceive a certain situation to be, how bad or good we perceive that situation to be, or that person to be, or, the environment that we're in, sort of, and what will come out of that person running our country, right?
Sure.
And fundamentally, even if you and I are opposite, I guarantee you we want the exact same things for our children.
Yeah.
Let's say you and I are on opposite. That's fine. We don't even have to cover who. I guarantee you, me, and every other person in our age range, in our demographic, with a young family like ours, all we want is a safe place for our children. We want certain things for our country. We want the freedom to do certain things. We want to have success. We want our money to go a long way. But let me tell you something. As an immigrant, I have it on a different scale. Like, I love this country more than I bet most people that were born here, because I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what my parents ran from. They ran. They cried hysterically. I remember the airplane ride from Russia. They cried hysterically just to get here. They knew nothing about America because they lived in a communist country that didn't even allow magazines to tell them what kind of place they're going to. They just knew that it can't be any worse than where they are.
Yeah.
So I love this country so much. And I hope that whoever I vote for or whatever I align with just retains that, because I love this country so much. I want my children to be a part of the American dream, because I really am like 150% the product of the American dream, you know?
But is it right for people to, let's bring it this way. Inside this cancel culture, I feel like a lot of people are held hostage from saying what they actually think, where they have to look for the things that we all agree on, and they aren't allowed to talk about the ones that they know don't. Someone else might think differently about this.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can't talk about it because I'm a realtor. I don't want to drive anyone away who could be a potential customer down the road because they might not like my religion. They may not like my politics, and I don't want that to hurt the business. Is that right? That's where we're at?
Is that right? It's absolutely not right. I wish we were in that stage of life. Like, I really do. It makes me sick, to be honest with you. I really wish people would like come back together. But I have to support my family, and me and my husband have to support our family. So I'm going to do everything in my power to demonstrate that I'm a good person. I want really good things for you and your family.
Yeah.
And I really hope that I don't get canceled. Now, do I sometimes vocalize politically where I stand, or, you know, what I think about the world, what I think about all the conflicts in the world? Sometimes, but I try not to as much as I can, because I don't want that to hurt my family. I don't want that to hurt my business.
Yeah. And that's the fear that I think so many business owners live in of, I certainly feel a certain way about it, but I'm not really allowed to talk about that. That's probably off limits. Hey, is this being recorded? Okay, I won't touch on this subject right there. Like it or not, that's the way it is. Now, I offer a bit of different perspective on whether or not you should talk religion, whether or not you should talk politics. It is just my own opinion. But I think about levels of market share. And for the average business owner, they're dealing with less than 1% market share, regardless of what they're selling and what they're in.
Sure.
You're at less than 1%. I've got a couple of businesses that are of some size, but even at the size that they are the freckle on the ass of the industry where it's so tiny. So I think about it from the perspective of, if I came out politically and I took a side and told people what I actually thought, raw, unfiltered, and just gave it to them, I know two things are true. Number one, I'm going to polarize half of the voting community.
Yep.
And I'm going to come out and be perfectly aligned with the other half of the people who are out there. Let's just say it's 80 million on both sides, voting age people. Is there a higher chance then that I can increase my percentage of market share by coming out and being real and authentic and telling people exactly what I think about politics, whether I'm for Biden, whether I'm for Trump, what my religion is, and letting them see the real me raw and the stuff I'm not supposed to talk about? Or is there a higher chance that my current customers stop working with me because they're like, wait, you're a Biden supporter? You're a Trump supporter? Like, I don't want to do business with you anymore. I have this theory that I've been playing with that, and I've seen it play out. I've got this theory that there's actually more to gain by talking about the things that are considered taboo, because you realign yourself so close and parallel with 50% of the electorate that you probably stand more to gain. If you're at 1% and now you have access to 50%, like, oh my God, Steve thinks just like I do.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to me, the business owners I've seen come out, and it's more on the Trump side. It's just more polarizing.
Okay.
Even though the elections happened at this point, he won by a decent majority.
Yeah.
They're not the silent majority that they thought they were, or silent minority. It's like, it's actually a majority of people that ended up voting that way. But the business owners that came out for Trump, and I've seen how it hasn't affected their business. Now it's in some niche businesses, and I think that it works out well for them. But I find it interesting when I came out politically and I told people what I thought a couple weeks before the election, the number of random DMs that I got, or different types of comments on TikTok and YouTube from people that are like, hey, I know where you stand now on this. And the number of DMs of people that are like, hey, I'm dark MAGA too, you know, like, hey, I'm also voting for Trump too. Hey, black business owners for Trump, you know, when you start to see that and you realize, okay, by coming out and saying what I wasn't supposed to say, I've actually aligned myself with people that were not on my radar. And maybe I never ended up doing business with them. It wasn't really about that. But I learned and saw, like, wait a minute. There might be something to this. Maybe it's not as alienating as I thought it was. Your thoughts on that? As I break that down in my own experience, what do you think about that?
So David and I talk about this probably too much because it's one of those topics that everyone is just so fascinated by. So he is with you. He says, why can't we share who we are and what we believe, and the people that, like, our people are going to gravitate towards us? And my thing to him is, I don't know that I want to alienate people that I love and that I respect who have they have fears. Just like, again, they have fears for our country. So whatever side they're on, they're fearing something. Like you can tell there's hatred on both sides. Like, people think that on each side, like, how could you sell out? How could you vote for that person? Yeah. Don't you see what's happening? So I don't like to negate that those people are feeling real feelings. Like, they're really scared. They're really insecure about what's happening on both sides. So I can definitely have a conversation, and it always gets brought up. It always somehow gets brought up, but I don't think I want it to be like online as a present, because I don't want people to take something, misconstrue it, and then write us off because of something we write online. Let's have a real conversation about it. Yeah. And then I think and that's when we will see, fundamentally, if you're a good person, we're probably aligned on many things except our interpretation of what is a good leader.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with people who think so different from me religiously and politically, and realize we have so much more in common than we have that separates us. But very polarizing issues to begin with. Your boy from Chicago, Michael Jordan, famously said that Republicans buy sneakers too. That's why he's not coming out and using his platform for politics.
I do remember that. Yeah, you know? He said, and exactly. So especially, why would he want to alienate 50% of his audience?
And I think it's different for Michael Jordan, though, because it goes back to my 1% comparison. If you already have a decent amount of market share, let's go back and play that probability game. Where do you stand to gain, and what do you stand to lose? And what's the likelihood that Michael Jordan would lose customers because he already had a decent amount of market share?
Very low. Know? And I do think after this election, I do think people are coming together a little bit more. Yeah. Especially just seeing the numbers. I think Trump supporters are getting less scared to come out as Trump supporters.
It's cool to come out now. It wasn't cool when I came out. Okay, I just want people to know that.
Steve came out first.
Cool when I came out. But you've seen, like, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy?
No.
You know about him?
No.
He runs so many commercials for these, like, really shitty pillows. I actually bought a few because his marketing is really good. But he predominantly is posting his videos. He buys ad space on, like, Fox News and Newsmax, the places that are known to be, like, very, very Republican heavy. He also got sued along with Trump after the last election because he was out with his platform talking about how the voting machines were messed up and how the election was stolen and all that. I didn't get into the crazy stuff on that. I wouldn't go that far with it. But he has built a sizable business based off of first his technology of making this new, like, fiber for a pillow. But then he chose a side and then marketed directly to the side that he chose as, hey, the reason you buy my pillows, the ones that I made, and you don't just go to Walmart and get them, is because you're Republican and I'm a Republican and you want to buy yours from me. And honestly, he has a lot of shitty products on his site that he sells now, but the marketing works because he came out.
Sure.
You know?
I wouldn't want to have that divide in real estate. I would not. If I was just an influencer who was selling, I don't know, the mom life, sure. Yeah. I'll let you know what my political stance is. As a realtor, though, I don't think I'm a better as a teammate to my husband realtor. I don't think we're a better team for Republicans. I don't think we're a better team for Democrats. Yeah. I think we can talk about it, and if you really want to know where we stand, and if that is how you're going to make your decision, that's fine. And that's fair if you really feel, but I don't think we're going to sell or buy you a home any better whether we're Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense except that people are like, oh, but they're my people. They're my people.
So the my people thing.
You know?
I mean,
that's and I think that you could do it with religion. Politics is the easy one right now because we're in this political season and the world's in a crazy spot to do it. I want to jump back and talk a little bit about like some of the specific marketing techniques that you use, not so we can talk about what it does for the realtors, but for business owners. Like I'm a product guy. There's services people that are out there. I want to know your perspective on what do you know about marketing in real estate that every business owner should be doing regardless of where they're at?
I think the biggest one is footprint. People need to know what you're doing. People need to remember you. So if your cousin tomorrow, Steve, is moving to Las Vegas from New York, and let's say Gavri, I mean, you're obviously using Gavri Group for the rest of your life in Las Vegas.
But now that's on the podcast, I'm stuck in it now.
But okay, so you don't know, and actually we have a really fun, interesting story. You guys bought our house, our original house that we remodeled, and we didn't know each other. I saw you on the Ring camera and I was like, those look like really nice people, but I can't intervene because they have a realtor and that's it. Yeah. And it ended up being a really, really funny transaction.
I would say very funky, you know.
And it's really funny because I think your realtor that you used at the time really put a divide. Like we had children the exact same age. Yeah. We could have been friends years ago when this transaction happened, right? But I don't know where I was going with that. What was the question?
Well, we were coming at it from the context.
Marketing.
Yeah.
So your cousin moves from New York in 3 months from now. You're on social media, and most of your social media is probably what you're interested in, right? Yeah. Political, blah, blah, blah. But you see some Gavri Group stuff, and let's say you didn't even use us. Yeah. Oh, I know these. I can refer you to a realtor. I see their stuff, right? Yeah. So it's just being center, like we need to be out there. The footprint has to be out there so that you remember us. That's just one thing. Yeah. Also value add. So we can tell you, I can tell you, and David can tell you the insides of the ins and outs of Vegas, like nobody's business. Yeah. We love this city. We are like the biggest cheerleaders for this city. Yeah. So you want to know anything? We're your resource. So it's value add. And we bring that in through social media. We bring that in through, our website. And we want to add value to your experience. Yeah. Because if your cousin from New York is moving here, he's going to judge us based on what we know. Because anybody can open a key or a door to a key. We have literally taken our clients and said, we're gonna go see houses. That's fine, but let us pretend that we're living here. Let's go to lunch in our favorite neighborhood that we have lunch in. Yeah. Let us show you our favorite park that we take our kids to. Because you want to live in Summerlin, but you're just it's so overwhelming what Summerlin is like. Yeah, let's go explore it as if we're locals, friends, just hanging out for a day. Yeah, and people are like, this is where I want to live, and it's just that So back to marketing, because I can get off tangent with kind of how it all plays out. But yeah, just investing back into ourselves. So investing back into keeping our name out there, obviously,
Staying top of mind.
Yeah,
that's also the reason to go to those nice restaurants and to be able to talk about and splurge a little bit on that.
Yeah.
I think it also helps to attract the clientele that are going to be buying in that $1 million range too, and talk about where they're going to be going out to eat when they live here, and you got to have this meal when you go to this place. That stuff works, I think, on people to be really real. But I want to hone in on that first thing you said about the footprint and being top of mind and creating content so that you're there. Because a lot of content creators, I think, get kind of bored with their content first. Long before their audience does. Yeah. I've seen it when I'm making content for the e-com space. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, this is boring. But the stuff that I'm really excited about is so complex in that level that it doesn't really reach a wide audience.
Sure.
And so you get bored with it first. But one thing you guys do a really good job is that staying present, staying top of mind, and keeping that content out there.
Alive,
you know? Is that a strategy that you learned from that top Las Vegas real estate agent?
No, well, yes, that in some regard, yeah. Because the marketing strategy for agents, it's not like it's so vastly different between, if you look at all the successful agents, their brand and sort of who they portray themselves as, those are all different, but they're pretty much all doing like the same stuff. We fell in love with Vegas first, just fell in love with the lifestyle here.
Yeah.
Then we started telling people how much we love Vegas. Then we started reiterating how much we love Vegas. And then it just became our brand. We have a podcast called Vegas Faces.
Yeah.
And, I don't get to be as heavily involved in that because I'm on mom duty when David's shooting half the time. And, I'm sure your wife would love to be here right now sitting with us talking, but.
This is the easy job. Chasing two toddlers around is no fun.
just making sure that these toddlers are, cared for day in and day out.
Yeah.
It's tough. But at the end of the day, the strategy behind the footprint is believe in if you really love it. Because I swear, if it was another city and we got into real estate and it was a city I didn't love, I'd say let me go back to my corporate life, because I don't love some cities the way that I love Vegas.
Yeah.
I literally live and breathe the lifestyle here and how much I love it. I literally, when I'm talking to people and they're like, yeah, Vegas is, I just am over it, blah, blah, blah. I lose interest in them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you're not going to rub off on me because I love Vegas.
See, Vegas for you and someone not liking it is like someone talking about politics.
Yeah.
What, I don't care who you voted for, but if you don't love Vegas, we are not working together. Okay.
And you know what's funny? And because I'm such a people person and because that shapes my entire personality and because I connect with so many people, a lot of people will ask well, what if you don't connect to somebody? And you know what? That's okay too.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often, but there are crappy people in this world.
Yeah.
There really are.
There's a few.
And
I can think of a few in my mind right now,
And so when we don't connect, that's fine too. There's going to be someone out there for you.
But odds are you will connect because you're out there making those introductions, putting yourself into a situation where you can win to make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you last question. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
So I am, maybe you know this about me and maybe you don't, but I was the seed capital in a skincare startup that's actively launching right now.
Very cool.
I just wanted to take your marketing brain and play the game of what do we do with this?
Okay.
So I brought props though. I have props with me.
Ooh, okay.
And these are props you can take home with you.
Yeah.
Too, by the way.
Love me a good prop. Okay.
I'm gonna hold one. You hold one.
Okay.
This is the Monopoly Skin brand, and this is what we call the Glow on the Go kit. Now we have much larger kits with much larger sizes of all this stuff too. Mm-hmm. But this kit in particular is designed to solve the problem of, hey, you're buying high-end skincare, but when it comes time to travel, what are you packing all of that up with you? You got your TSA stuff that's there. Can you have the same high-end skincare that's accessible in these cute little bottles that you can run with it too? Okay, so this is one thing that we have that is for travel. The rest of the brand, it comes obviously individually in the full sizes. Then we've got some kits that are put together.
And it's always this look, right?
Always this look. And this look is curated by the influencer that I partnered with for this brand. Her last name is Monopoly.
Okay.
And her whole shtick is be your own Monopoly. There is no competition. Your standard of beauty is
love
you.
That.
Yes. So
yes.
I love the vibe that she has with it. But you hold this in your hand. Mm-hmm. I don't know how into skincare you are. Most women are like, oh, I love my skincare.
Obsessed,
I love my beauty and all that too. We're in the process of launching. What comes to mind for you as you're thinking about this? And I'm specifically around brand awareness and taking your marketing mind from marketing finance, marketing real estate, and now I'm pulling you into my world of the product side of how do we get this in as many people's hands as possible? And better question, let's forget that first one. The better question is, what would you have to know about this brand, not knowing it from Adam?
Okay.
It's not a L'Oreal. It's not some big brand name. What would you have to know to get brought to a buying decision to say, I'm going to use Monopoly Skin? What would have to be true for you to make a conversion to Monopoly Skin?
So I am not great with consumer marketing because that's just not something I've touched in ever in my life other than my classes in college. But I would sell a lifestyle that is associated to this brand. And the first thing that comes to mind is like minimalistic, a little bit like minimalistic, but high end, right? Because it's like, it's not very like glitzy glammy, but it's very like, you know how the Kardashians have made, and I hate to use them but man, these are some marketing geniuses.
They are. Yes.
I mean, they make the most simple item into the most demure. I hate that word. I've been hearing it a lot. But they make it into this like unbelievable brand. They will take undergarments that are literally sold at every Target, Walmart, Nordstrom, and they will make it like the most desirable undergarment.
Yeah.
Because they're mysterious and like I keep saying the word demure. I don't know that I've even used that word before.
Yeah.
Except for today. But so I would make this. Obviously, I would partner with influencers and just make it like so unattainable for the everyday person, right? So when I think of travel sizes, you know, I go to Walgreens and I buy all my stuff in travel sizes.
Yeah.
But this is for the very, you know, for a different demographic of person.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how much this is priced at.
Yeah. I mean, it's not cheap. So even a little thing like this would probably run you about $40. And then like normal kits that you might get at like Walgreens for $40, like ours would be like $140 on top of that too. But the quality is there to substantiate that, and the thought process put into it, and it's differentiated. But at the same time, you're asking someone to come and pay $140 for what they can get for $40.
Yeah.
Like that's difficult.
So this whole package is how much? 40?
This would be $40.
$40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any negotiation on packaging, or is that set in stone?
No, everything is up to, because right now what we've done is we brought in the first container's worth of product, but the manufacturer is actively making more, and so we're making changes. So your recommendations as a consumer, I want to hear it, the good, bad, and the ugly.
So I would make this very demure, very like what's that word I kept using? The mysterious, like. This is for the woman. This is for the businesswoman who's traveling to New York for 4 days to do presentations at her work. She doesn't have the time to go out shopping for each individual item on a smaller scale. And she needs something on the go, but like super high quality, because she's not going to play with her moisturizer. Like, I know the difference between a really good moisturizer, a really good primer. Let's see what else. A serum. Like like my skin, especially as someone who's like 25 years old. Do the math.
See?
Do the math.
I thought it was 55 earlier. Now it's 25. Okay, now that's mysterious. See?
That is mysterious. I am 41 years old. So skincare is
well, you can't tell it. We'll cut that part out of the video.
Cut it out,
okay?
That That is not for everybody to know.
We'll
I don't
tell
care.
them in the comments to guess, okay?
Thank you.
Right.
No,
that was from earlier, though. That was from earlier.
But no, honestly, skincare for somebody my age is so important. I have this theory that women in their 40s can literally look 29 or they can look 59.
Yeah.
And there's like no middle ground, because they have to just take care. They have to like still be prideful in their appearance.
Yeah.
Because this is the time where you know you don't have those 25-year-old looks to fall back on.
Yeah.
But so this would appeal to, like, that's exactly who this would appeal for.
Yeah.
The 40-year-old businesswoman who still has an appreciation for quality and still has to have unbelievable products at her disposal, but doesn't have the time to run around and put everything into small containers. And does that make
take it
sense?
all with them? Yeah. And that's why I love this travel case. Look, I never did any skincare up until about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to understand why I'm not allowed to use a bar soap to wash my face. And then, you know, I learn a little bit because I'm involved in this world and being invested in the company. But I love what it is we're building. I just like to ask that question to people to understand, hey, like what when you look at this, like would get you to, you know, that buying decision, and what's the avatar that when you look at this, like you're thinking about. I find it very interesting. I want to sum up, because I do think like it's great to get your take and your marketing mind on our products and to pull you into my world for a few minutes. But it's been nice to be a part of your world and really understand that the background, but also like what it is that you're doing to pull the trigger, or really to pull the levers and find success where so many people are failing. And so This has been really, I think, eye-opening. I want to pull some of the insights out of what you talk about in real estate and understand how can I apply this to my business. And marketing that works to get someone's personal brand big enough for a realtor, like that matters to me as a product guy too. If I was a services guy, that all is still very, very applicable. So
there's one thing you did not cover in this
podcast.
We're both on the debate team in high school.
I forgot about that. Yes.
And that is like, and the reason I even bring that up is to sum everything up. When I got hired for my public equity firm, that was the number one thing that they loved about my resume, right? It's because I put myself in situations like that in high school.
Yeah.
I'm competitive. People voted for me. I won Illinois State and went to nationals. Maybe there's like something to that. So
that's such a good point. I have such a small recollection of being on the debate team, but what I remember, I don't remember any of the cases that I debated.
Right.
Not a single one. It's been almost 20 years.
Yeah.
But what I do remember is knowing that I wasn't going to know which side I had to argue, even though you had the information, you could prepare for it, but they were going to let you know which side you had to fight for.
So you were in Douglas debate. I was in congressional debate. Is that
okay? So I don't even know these terms. Okay. I'm sure I knew it back then.
So Douglas is one-on-one. We're debating about a topic. You're pro, I'm con. Congressional is debating a bill into Congress.
Okay.
So at that point, we didn't even know if we're Democrat or Republicans. We're just like, we're 14 years old debating euthanasia. Like, should we pass a bill to approve euthanasia in the U.S.? And we're literally, as high schoolers, getting information, getting newspaper articles, and trying to back up our pro and con scenarios.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, one of the most pivotal moments in my life. Put me out there. It taught me how to be a people person. It kind of made my people skills a little bit more honed in and politically correct.
But what an important skill to know how to craft a verbal argument. Like, I remember what I learned was, here's where I want to go. I have to provide all this context to trail in order to support like where I'm going to be going.
Yes.
And to know that in your mind that I have to get evidence and support the whole way, or someone's going to destroy this whole argument based on what I didn't hit here. That works in life too. And when you take a stand, I mean, I don't know what your couple fights look like when you're going at it, but the debater in the family is a little bit more prepared.
So David does say, I cannot believe I married a girl who was like a debate champion in high school, because it comes out, he's like, babe, not everything is a debate. And I'm
right.
Well.
But you both have the verbal skills, because he's the comedian, can think well on his feet, can probably get you to laugh when you're mad at him.
Absolutely.
And then you've got this debate skill that goes along with it. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for some of those fights.
Well, you're more than welcome for dinner any night.
You guys are open for anything.
We're open. We are. That's one thing about David and I think that's what people love about us, is we are. And you will probably, when you get to know me on like a personal level, I don't hold back. I'm so like, I'm not a secretive person. I'm not mysterious. I am. What you see is what you get. You can ask me any question, and I'll pretty much tell my life story to anybody if they want to hear.
Do you have like the left and right limits? Some couples are perfectly good to argue. They don't care who's around. Like, we get into a fight, we handle this right here. Dinner table, Cheesecake Factory, we're gonna go at it with each other. Everyone's around, kind of like. And then the other couples are like, let's wait till we get home. Like, what are you guys like?
We will jokingly like be like, but but no, we would never put out our business out there. And if we really aren't like a fighting couple, we're very chill. Yeah. Like, our children are really chill. I think people, when they're around us, they're like, you guys you really like each other. And I think that's probably like been our advantage from the moment we met, is like, we're best friends, as cliche as it sounds. He's my soundboard for everything. I'm his. We don't even have the same interests sometimes. Like David loves to do a bunch of activities, and he loves to go like adventures, and I'm like all about people and friends and keeping up with everybody and decorating the house. But we just like appreciate each other for who we are. We're not trying to make each other into anything else. Like, go do your weird stuff. Go play poker. I don't care. I'm not that interested in poker. But if you want to talk about it and if you need a soundboard for like a hand that you had and I probably don't understand. I still got your back. I'm your best friend.
Tell me how you played that 10 deuce. I'd love to hear about it, you know?
But yeah, no, never. We would never be that couple. I think we're both like raised really tactfully, like from really good homes. So I think that's, you know, just making sure and for people like watching out there and stuff, like how important that is to raise your children with like the skill set to be able to talk and have communications and form relationships. God, you are setting them up for like a life of, you know, it's also, I also really do believe communication, being outgoing. I think it's also a muscle that you have to work. And I think one of the most important things, we put our kids in a lot of social settings because it's very important. I was in a lot of social settings. My husband grew around, you know, both of our families are very, like both of our sets of parents are very outgoing. So it's like, to us, it's just something we know and we know how to navigate, and we really want that for our children too.
That's cool because people talk about how the most formative thing in a child, like bar none, is the environment that they grow up in, the neighborhood that the parents put them in. But I would add to that one of the most formative things you can do for a child is to put them in situations where they have to learn to communicate.
Absolutely.
Because everybody's here. We're all talking to each other. You can't hide in the corner. How much easier is life when you know that you've exercised that extrovert muscle enough that I can turn it on? Maybe I'm still an introvert and maybe I'm exhausted when I get back in the car, but I know how to turn it on and go just like, I'm talking to people right now.
Inevitably, we are who we are. Like some people are more extroverted, some people are more introverted. I have a family of all extroverts. So this subject became fascinating to me as an adult because I didn't even know that other people, like it was hard for them. My family, my house always had company over, and my brother and I were always big party animals. Like that's all I've ever known. But I do respect the fact that it is so much harder for some people. But what I am seeing is a trend of people getting more and more comfortable in their shell, especially with COVID. And that is not good. Yeah. And that is not going to set you up for success. Yeah. Even if your mind, if you're, you know, in your mind, you're more of a techie person who can sit behind a computer, you still have to put yourself in situations.
Yeah. I think that everyone knows this, but people have to realize that if you're bad at something, you just haven't done it enough yet. Absolutely. I watched this Myron Golden. Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a big social media star, but he's an excellent speaker, big social media presence. And he always gives these talks, and he talks about like understanding what mastery is. And as he's explaining what mastery is, he has this like great illustration for what it is and these big words that he's using.
Yeah.
But he kneels down on camera and he goes, watch this. And he ties his shoe without looking at it. He's on a stage, the people clap for him and all that. And he's like, you know how I got so good at that? Like, I was terrible at this when I was 3 years old.
3 years old, yeah.
I cried about the fact that I couldn't do it. And it resonates with me because I watched my 5-year-old who's trying to learn how to tie a shoe right now. And I made a little shoe box, put some holes in it, and we put some shoe in it. And she throws it across the room and she's kicking it. And she's so upset with herself that she can't figure it out. And we all know as adults, hey, you're going to be really, really good at that one day. You'll be able to do it with your eyes closed, not even watching. And so after seeing that, I showed her, I was like, hey, watch this. Watch what dad can do, okay? Yeah. My eyes are shut, tie my shoe. Like, untie it again. Without even opening my eyes, I'm going to tie it again.
Yeah.
You know, I got so good at that. I've tied my shoes like 25,000 times in my life, maybe more than that. And I think your principle about becoming an extrovert, that's interesting because I never thought about you can exercise that muscle. Oh, I don't do well talking to people. Well, do it 25,000 times. You'll get really fucking good at it.
Amazing.
You know?
Yeah, and it'll become so natural. Like, I know I've been around people and they're like, we'll go to a party, right? And everyone's like, God, I'm so nervous. Like, who's going to be there? What's going to be there? And I'm like, I don't know. Who cares?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like, the only thing I'm nervous about is like, should I drink tonight? Or, you know, I'm really fun on a few glasses of wine, but, no, it's so natural. And I think I've put myself in so many of these. And I think growing up, I was actually a shy kid. Yeah. And I just think being around just a constant flow of people and not being scared of people. And it's just like formed who I am today. But
well, it is really hard to go far in life if you're not willing to talk to people. And it's even harder to go far in life if you're not willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that what was it, the word you said before? The frame of influence or the zone of influence?
The sphere of influence.
The sphere of influence. You got to be in the room. And to be in the room, you can't be the awkward guy in the room who's like timid in the corner, like not wanting to talk to anyone. You got to be in the room.
And if I had $1 for every time I talk to a person, a mom, somebody at school, and their first reaction is they're awkward. And then I like literally pull something out of them. And all of a sudden we are talking and they're letting loose, letting go. And it just takes me making them feel comfortable to see, like, it takes no time. It's just this glimmer comes out of them. And it's really fascinating for me because it's like we have that in us. And people come off standoffish, especially introverts. And people aren't even aware that they come off standoffish. And that's also something you can work on. Like the way you meet somebody in the first 5 seconds can literally rub them wrong to where they never want to see you again. Like if you and your wife show up at a kid's birthday party that you were invited to from a friend's, and you literally don't enter the way that they makes them feel good, they're going to ride you off and say, like, let's not be friends with those people. So how easy is it to work on the way you introduce yourself for the first 5 seconds?
Nobody wants to practice that. But, you know, I found nothing breaks the ice more than someone being like super vulnerable, like super raw.
Absolutely.
Like, almost, oh my God, yes, like that. It's all of a sudden like we're having a conversation. We're not in small talk. Now, as a dad that drops my daughter off at school, I see the moms who are there. And I'm sure when Elisa drops off our daughter at school, she like hangs out with them and they're all doing their thing. I don't want to talk to anyone. Not because I'm an introvert. But like I do this all day long. So I'm on the phone all day long. Like when I'm with the kids, I'm just kind of like, I just want to drop her off and then get to where I'm going to next. And so like I probably come off as like awkward, super abrasive to people because it's kind of like brush off, like I'm just going where I'm going. But then whatever I'm doing, I'm giving 100% of my attention to it. Like we sit down and do this for 2 hours. My phone's over there. My watch is over there. Like I have no interaction with what's going on. I've been in do not disturb for the last 5 hours. And so I'm kind of notorious for just like, no, I'm living in the moment. I'm so hyper focused on what I'm doing right here that it does come across to people as, oh, you must not be like that social. It's like, oh, no, you don't know me. I'm very social, but I'm also focused.
I would almost give you this to just think about. So these moms, right, and these parents, and they're going to be big pivotal things in your life, right? Because they're going to be friends with your children, and one day you're going to meet them, and or they might not. Maybe you're literally going to see them next year, or you're not even going to see them next year because your child's in a different class. But maybe just work on that, like, smile that you give someone and just acknowledge that you're a human. And yes, we're passing and I don't have time to have this discussion, but like, I'm going to give you a smile and let you know that you're a human and I see you. You're also a parent. You probably had a temper tantrum last night around 7:30 when you were trying to put your child to bed, and just like relate to them on like this 3-second in the passing. And it goes so far that, and people just sometimes like avoid that 3-second, like, you're a human, I'm a human, you're a parent, I'm a parent. We're scared about the world that our children are living in right now. Have a great Monday, you know?
You know, you're so right about that. I can't refute any of it.